Hello everyone, I'm Grandmaster Denes Boros, and today I'm going to show you how Firouzja managed to outplay the very strong Grandmaster from Hungary, Viktor Erdős. So let's take a look. So in this game between Viktor Erdős, he plays the Caro-Kann, not his usual choice, but he tries to complicate matters. Knight f3, d5. Now, knight f3 is somewhat of a rare move itself, even though it has been favored by none other than Bobby Fischer. Bishop g4, the other move that is very topical is knight f6, but bishop g4 was played by Firouzja. h3, takes, e6. And I want to stop for a moment. This is a typical structure. What is a building? A little bit of a hat formation, which keeps this bishop away. And even though white has the bishop pair, it's more of a close position, which favors the sides with the knights. d4, knight f6, sort of provoking white to push the pawn. And in that case, the position remains closed with some targets on d4 and e5, even though there is a little bit of extra space for the white player. However, for that very reason, white decided to take on d5, which looks somewhat unusual. However, it has a point. The more it opens up, the more the bishops get stronger. C takes d5, keeping it closed. That's why he's taking with the c pawn, keeping the e file closed off for the bishops and the rook. Bishop d3, knight c6, knight d2, h6, taking away that square. c3, bishop d6, actually putting the bishop on an active square. And of course, if bishop f4, black would be more than happy to trade, because then white would lose the advantage of having a pair of bishops, which is kind of like the pair of aces. Bishop c2, rook c8, g4. Very, very interesting play by Erdős. Erdős is saying, well, most likely you are going to castle short, but if you do, I have h4 and g5, and with my snipers actually lurking around your king, this will be a very, very arduous task for you to survive. Now, in this situation, however, Firouzja came up with a brilliant, brilliant concept. So I would advise you to pause this video, pause it for a second, and think about a concept of trying to put this king into safety. I hope you had a little bit of a time figuring out what you're going to do. And here Firouzja came up with the spectacular move of king d7. Not something that you usually see. Usually you don't walk your king all the way through to the other side. Technically, black is doing a castling, but with hands. So in this case, the king, even though is in the middle, because of the close nature of the position, he gets away with this maneuver. g5 and g5, believe it or not, is a mistake. Erdős is sort of shocked to see this move, this maneuver, and sort of argues that after bishop g5, he will have lots of pressure. In hindsight, he should have played something along the lines of h4, g5 and tried to put pressure, even though objectively, even this is playable for Firouzja. g5, captures, rook takes, queen takes, knight d7. After queen e7, king arrives to the queen side, and black is more or less okay. g5, very aggressive move, takes, king c7, and that is actually typical super grandmaster play. They embark on a plan and they don't ditch it last moment. They make sure they follow through. And the king arrives on b8 from e8, where it was in some sort of danger. Rook b1, and even though we'd say that, hey, this was somewhat of a unique plan, what Firouzja does next is even more spectacular and somewhat flabbergasting too. Goes b5. b5 is a move that can hardly be advised for someone starting out chess, but Firouzja can be labeled as a newcomer. He's saying, well, yes, my king is here, but you have no ways of attacking my king, because usually you would want to have the pawns in front to cover. But in this case, now the pawns are rolling and sort of sets up a minority attack against white's king. a3, a5, just trying to keep this b4 break alive. queen d3, queen b6. But in fact, Firouzja is in no rush to play b4 just yet. He makes sure that white cannot infiltrate with queen b5. Takes, takes, rook g7, trying to create weaknesses even at the cost of giving up the bishop pair. Queen b7, rook b1, b4, and now you can see the concept. By Firouzja, he brought the king over and also have some pressure along the c and b files. a4, nice move by Erdos, trying to keep it closed. Bishop f8, bishop h6 check. Bishop finds a new route to the other side of the board, trying to attack and even stop a potential passer on the h file. d1, f5, cutting off the queen and bishop combo. Take, take, rook g3, rook c8. Back he goes, as the bishop all alone can hold up that rook on g3. So Erdos is here waiting for Firouzja's plan. King e1, takes, takes. Knight e7, king f1, king a7, rook g1, queen a6, trading off white's active piece. Trades, trades, bishop d3, king a7, bishop b5. And for the moment, Erdos playing as white could be okay and feeling content with the situation. However, problem number 2, you gotta take a little bit of a think how black could go after the c3 pawn and conversely to the d4 pawn after. So this is a little bit of a moment again to take a pause and wonder how you can improve the position for black. Now our bishop is doing a good job controlling these squares. The rook is mounting some pressure on the c pawn. The only piece left is that knight on e7. So Firouzja embarks on the mission of getting it smack into the center and attack the c pawn from there. So goes knight g8, rook g3, knight f6, knight e4 is coming, hitting both the rook and the pawn. And now you can see the quality difference between having a knight on e7 and e4. Now this wouldn't be a viable maneuver for not a close position, but it's possible, and now white is actually being paralyzed by that big piece. Rook d1 decides to give up a pawn, hoping that this will be close to a draw, but it turns out not to be the case. h4, king b7, king c8, trying to usher out that bishop. Bishop g7, king e7, king f6, and because of the plentiful weaknesses in this position, white is struggling. King g5 takes, wins a pawn, but actually the f pawn is falling, and after the f pawn falls, the game is essentially lost. He manages to save it, but that is just momentary because the bishop is coming via bishop f6 and h4. Doesn't do it. He does the other way around, but it's the same old concept as white is paralyzed, can't move at all. Rook c5, bishop e1, rook b5 takes, rook takes, and check. And here Erdos resigned because if you move the king, there is e takes d5 and black is up a whole row. So I hope you really enjoyed this lecture on Firouzja's win and using the king walk as a weapon. If you have any thoughts and comments, please post it down below. And if you have openings that you'd be interested in, do let me know in the chat. And of course, you can find us on Twitch and hope to see you around again sometime in the future. So see you next time and keep on posting your fun messages. Thank you for watching again. Goodbye.